Hey there, and welcome to Casting Workbooks, The Working Actor. I'm Natasha Gargiulo. Nice to have you guys back again. This is two now in the same month, and I'm so happy that we are going strong with this podcast. I'm so thrilled today to be talking with Canadian royalty. I'm from Montreal. She's from Montreal. Then she moved on to do incredible things. We're talking to the one and only Carolyn Taylor, who is an actor, a writer, a director, a showrunner, and a comedian. And she has this hilarious docu-comedy series that is right now streaming on Crave about making one of her dreams come true. And if this interview doesn't inspire you today, I don't know what will. So make sure that you've got your pen and papers handy because we have an hour with the one and only Carolyn Taylor on The Working Actor on Casting Workbook. Welcome.
Oh, wow. Thanks. What an intro. Thanks, Natasha. Great to be here. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Well, you know what? I'm so happy that you're here because, everybody has that dream that they want to come true, whether it's feasible or not. We all wish that one day, whether, like you were asking me, do you sing? And I'm like, yeah, I would love to have sang on Broadway, but that will never happen. But you actually had a dream that inspired you to make your dream come true while you were driving in your car. And
Yes.
it did. So, Carolyn, you have a comedy called I Have Nothing, which is inspired by Whitney Houston's song, I Have
Yes.
Nothing. Tell
Yes.
us how it came to be.
Well, kind of that. I was in the car. I heard the song I Have Nothing on the radio back in, I think it was 2014. And that, I mean, of course, I'd heard the song obviously many times before. It came out in 92 for The Bodyguard. But when I heard it in 2014, I'm like, oh my God, this song needs to be a professional pairs Olympic level, figure skating routine. And it was like, it just stuck in my head. And then I started like choreographing it in my head and hearing the jumps. And then I decided to put it on stage. So tried it as a piece. So not stand up, but more of a performance piece on stage, like performance art, whatever you want to call it. And the audiences really received it well. And so I kept doing it. And then I started saying to the audience, I'm going to do this one day. Like, why I said that, I don't know. I was like, oh, just watch, you'll come back, right? Like when I'm actually doing that, and they're all like, ha ha ha. And yeah, sure. And sure enough, like after the pandemic, I started really, or during it, thinking about it more and more, and teamed up with Zach Russell and really put my TV making experience and creating experience to use, and seeing if one could allow the other to exist and happen. And that's kind of what happened.
So, Carolyn, your background is you're an executive producer and star of CBC's hit comedy Baroness von Sketch Show. You've won over 20 Canadian Screen Awards and a slew of other awards. You've performed for Second City. And the one thing that you didn't, though, have in your bio is choreographer or figure skating experience.
Right.
So, you know,
I needed to add the hyphenate, there was something missing. Yeah.
but now you can add choreographer, right?
I,
Um,
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Talk about manifesting your dreams and manifesting things and bringing them to light. Tell me, who were the people who kind of helped you make this possible?
I mean, gosh, so many people. One would be, well, one, working with Zach Russell, the two of us really thinking about how to do this and ways to approach it, and doing a lot of that foundational work that kind of has to happen before you get a show. There's a lot of that work first. And then I would say the team at Catalyst, who said yes, who said, oh, I hear what you're saying. I think this is really cool. And Julie Bristow, who leads Catalyst, said, oh, I used to be obsessed with Katarina Witt. And she knew Sandra Bezic, who really is the person who, when I pitched the project to her and we talked about figure skating, we really connected. And she was like, oh, okay, this sounds like a project, that she wanted to be involved with. Of course, she was nervous about offering her, her people forward, her figure skating royalty essentially to the project. But she did, she took a leap of faith. And so that was a huge boon for the project, and really helped it happen.
If you're
And
just
of course, Blue Ant Media getting on board, and then Crave saying yes. I mean,
incredible.
the team at Crave was amazing. Bell Crave, they really understood it. So if there's anyone in the audience or listening who has tried to pitch things, like, you really want that feeling of your producers and your network getting it and wanting to do it. Because believe me, I pitched producers who didn't understand it and didn't want to do it, and also networks that were like, I don't understand it, or maybe not for us. But to really look for that feeling of connection. And then, okay, we can make something good because you're not like dragging someone up a mountain, you're going together.
Right. So, if you're just joining us now, we're talking with Carolyn Taylor, and she is a comedian, actor, writer, showrunner, director. But she's got this amazing docu-comedy series on Crave right now, and it's basically she's embarking on this quest to choreograph the perfect full-length pairs figure skating routine to Whitney Houston's "I Have Nothing," and you are teaching this choreography to, like you said, Olympic royalty. David Peltier, Kurt Browning. These are legends. What was your first encounter with them, and how did you get them to sign on and say, yeah, you could teach me a choreography about skating when they have more experience than you do?
It was terrifying, Natasha. Like, people are like, oh, you weren't scared. No, I was scared every step of the way. I was scared I was going to be the one who, caused them to fall and break their legs and end their, careers. Like, I had fears the entire time, but the skating community was so generous. And yeah, they were skeptical. Like, I remember Paul Martini, when we pitched him and we got, anyone we talked to from the skating world, we got them on Zoom first. And they were like, this is crazy. What are you doing? But they were curious, they were curious and they were playful. And then when we actually got the green light, they got on board and they said, okay, I'll take a chance. Like, I'm not sure about this, but let's meet and talk. And we got it on camera. And then, one by one, they got, they sort of came to see see the vision.
So, what research did you have to do in order to teach them how to dance on skates?
Well, I watched like hours and hours and hours of figure skating. So like an actor, preparing for a role, and that's not in the show, but I watched hours and hours and hours. I was like recording myself on cell phone and stuff to try to document these hours. And that was part of it, learning that. And even then, I still didn't understand the language and how to do it, because as like you can watch and watch, but until it's in your body, until you're actually on the ice doing it, communicating ideas, that's when I learn, when I'm actually doing something. But the prep helped for sure.
Did you ever, at one point while you were shooting the docu series, where did you ever say, like, is this really happening?
Every
Is,
day.
yeah.
It was somewhere between, is this really happening, is this real? It's made me question reality. So I'm like, are we in a simulation? Is this real? How is this happening? Was with me always. And then the stress of it was the only thing that could put that voice aside, because it's like, well, you don't actually get to just wallow in or question reality and is this possible and can I do this? You just have to actually do it, because as you know, with a shooting schedule, you
Yeah.
just have to do it. You can't back out. You can't say, oh, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think this is a good idea. It's like, you
Right.
do it.
Right. And what was it like working with Mae Martin on it?
Oh, that was amazing. I mean, May and I have known each other over 20 years, and of course they're like, I'm so proud of them, watching, the success of their shows and all the work they're doing in the UK and now in LA. And so May had performed stand up with me when I'd done the live skating performance, like when I was doing it as a bit, a sort of performance stand up bit. And they were like, what is this thing? They always thought it was such a bizarre project. And when I told them it was green lit, they're like, oh my God. And so I was like, do you want to come and be, witness to this and be my pal on the journey? And they're like, of course. So they were curious for sure. And it was the best working with them, because we have such a long friendship and trust, and that it was just a joy.
Now, I don't want to give away too much, because if people haven't watched the full docu-series yet, what, aside from the finished routine, what was probably the most fulfilling moments of this experience for you?
Ooh, okay. Besides like going through fear is so rewarding when you go and you continue to go through fear and you're still standing and you're still there. That's huge. So I'd say that was massive. Of course, the routine happening. I don't want to talk about the end. That was massively, I can't even. And I think part of it is trying to communicate with my 14 or 15-year-old self. Like, that's the part, like, I'm so happy for her. Like, as an adult, I'm like, well, I'm an actor and a creator and I made a thing and cool. but the teenager who lives in me, and I guess we all kind of have that teenager in us, she doesn't understand any of this. Like, so I think just offering her this gift uh, is something that I don't know brings me. I still have a hard time believing it, and but brings me joy to try to offer it to her. If that doesn't sound too crazy.
This is such an inspiring story for anyone tuning in right now. I mean, we just want to talk, for more than an hour with you to figure out how you made all of this happen. So talk about that teenage girl who was living here in Montreal.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about her, and when did she know she was funny and that she can make a living out of this
Oh,
talent of making people laugh?
good question. Well, I was in Montreal, and my first gig, other than like, oh, I remember in elementary school, we were doing like a Christmas pageant, and I guess I had a doll that was being chosen to be Jesus, and I was like, oh, I got to be Mary, like bringing it. I was at a Catholic school, and I remember my teacher saying, okay, you can be Mary, but don't make I don't she said, don't make a meal of this, don't try to make don't try to steal the show, like don't. So I was like, oh well, why would you think I would do that? And then I was in the chill so that was my first big break, I guess. And then I was in the Children's Shakespeare Company in Montreal, so that was out of Montreal West. And this woman Christine Kieran's ran that. I was 9, and I got promoted from being a fairy in A Midsummer Night's Dream to Snug the Joiner. And if for I'm sure most of you guys are aware of the play and the part. And so Snug is a play within a play, and is the lion in that. And in it, I had to roar. And I guess I stood on the stage and I just said the word roar. I didn't understand that I should perform a lion. Anyway, the audience laughed every night. I didn't understand why they were laughing, and I still don't entirely, but I was like, oh, I like this. I really like this. So that's when the bug started for me. That's my first laugh that I remember playing Snug the Joiner.
And so then how did you pursue it? How did you know you wanted to pursue that?
Well, I was in the school plays and everything in high school, and then I went to Queens, and I thought I was going to become a lawyer. Actually, that was my plan. But I loved acting, so I was taking a drama class, and I was in the musical theater. It's called Queens Players, so sort of social, satirical, silly, not serious musical theater, more like fun, where you'd make up your own songs and whatever. And then I got into the big production of Les Liaisons Dangereuses, and the director, who was in from out of town, had come in and was like, "You got something, kid." So I had to. That was really hard. I had to talk to my mom, a single mom, and sort of say, "Look, I think I want to actually pursue acting. This is really what I want to do, not law school." And that was hard. We had a big argument about it, and it's really hard to do that, to say, actually, this is what I want to do. So I studied drama, but I also political studies at Queen's, which also informed my work on Baroness, informed my work at Second City, like having that political, social, satirical mind and training, I guess. And then it was when I came back from traveling after university, I'd seen a Second City show, and it was called Tory Party of Two. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is what I want to do, like improvisation, comedy, political lens on stage. And a friend of mine had a lousy basement apartment and said, come live with me. And I paid $200 a month in rent and slept on the floor and took classes at Second City. And that's where I met a lot of friends to this day, and did that work, and then got into the tour co, and then quit my day job and joined Mainstage and that kind of thing.
And here you are.
Yeah.
That's a very inspiring story. So, when you first heard Whitney Houston's song in 1992, I believe, did you have the idea right away, or was it
Not
something
in
that grew
92.
on
It
you?
wasn't until 2014. I would have seen The Bodyguard. I would have heard the song like all of us, and probably liked it because I loved Whitney from the time I was a teen. Like her first album came out when I was, I think, 13, 12, 13, 14. So I listened to it. I loved it. And it wasn't till 2014, for some reason, it was like hearing it for the first time. And then boom, the vision was there. And it was populated by the skaters from '88, like Katarina Witt,
Yeah.
Kurt Browning. And yeah,
How did you go about getting permission to use Whitney's music?
that was a lot of work, Natasha. That was,
Nothing's ever easy.
No, it's not easy. And like people were like, well, how about another song? It's like, no, there's one vision. I'm not here to fulfill someone else's vision. This is
Right.
the vision. Why would I do it with another song that's not what, so that's so horrible, right? Like not horrible, but that was the comedy. So rather than trying to do what was safer and maybe more feasible, my job was to stay true to the vision, because comedically that was going to serve us as well, right? For me to stay true to my vision as me, and then also not to back away from that, not to allow my producer's brain to say, well, it'd be a lot cheaper if we got, or not, or easier, because it actually is. Anyone who knows about rights, like they can say no for any reason. No, I don't want to do that. You're not getting the rights. I don't care. So I had to write a letter to the Houston estate, and I poured my heart out and wrote about everything Whitney meant to me over the years. But then the real challenge, so they were actually on board fairly early, but when we started, we did not have the rights at all. And I had to get David Foster and Linda Thompson and the publishers on board. And that we didn't have that till, well, wait, like even when I get the news in the series, like the I's had not been dotted or T's crossed even at that point. There was a lot of work to get that. So we were gambling. And if we hadn't have gotten the rights, we would have had to re-engineer the story. Like, I don't know if you noticed, we have a lot of scenes where we're listening in headsets to the song. So the thought was, okay, we don't want to lose that scene if we don't get the rights. So we'll do it in a headset. And then if we don't get the rights, we're going to have to, I don't know, we'll have to do something. And so we were always trying to cover our asses that way in case we didn't get the rights.
Wow, wow, wow. It wouldn't be the same without her song. It really wouldn't.
No, it
Not at
wouldn't. It's
all.
impossible. So we just kept going. It was like, no, we're doing it.
So now that it's done, do you think that maybe you would do it again?
Do what again?
Do this whole docu series with what you went through, because nothing was easy, right? And you went through a long process in having it made, and thankfully you have had it made, because this really is comic relief for everyone watching, and it inspiration for making your dreams come true. But
Yeah.
if you were to be at that point again in your car listening to the Whitney Houston song, would you do it again?
Yeah, of course. I mean, listen, this was one of the best experiences of my life.
Hmm.
Like to the people I met, the people I worked with, working with Sandra Bezic, working with all those skaters, facing fears, working with Zach, working with the team at Crave, like all of it was exhilarating. And to get to put my comedy brain and then acting brain and then improvisation and then also having to throw everything out sometimes and just live in the unknown, it was exhilarating. So yeah, if I ever had a chance to do it again, I would. And if I had a chance to do something else in the docu-comedy world, I would for sure.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that maybe something audiences can take away from it is to encourage people to try new things and to
Yes.
follow your dreams.
Yes, and I would say, if there are industry people, who ever see this, but like we need to green light more Canadian projects and things that are not necessarily derivative or based on a formula from another country or something. And while those are all great too to have, we just need to have just more voices, and more chances being taken so that people's unique vision can be seen, and one that's not my vision, someone else's vision. Just I think our country would really benefit from all these amazing artists. Um, us getting a few more green lights out there for even short, 6 episodes, like that kind of thing.
Absolutely. We were talking about fear before, and I noticed in the series that you often turn to bananas every time you're feeling a little anxious. Can you explain that? What that what
I
that's all
don't
about?
even like the thing is, it's not like I've gone through my life as a banana person. I do like a banana and I like them a certain way. Like I don't like them too ripe, I don't like them too green. Like I'm very picky. But on set, like it just at first was just a really easy snack, and it's like I don't have any paper left, I'm not, my hands aren't going to get all wet from like an orange or something. It's healthy. And then it just became a thing. And like with the show, we just leaned into anything that was presenting itself. It's like, oh, it just seems like this is the crutch. This is the thing giving me the energy and the focus I need. And then it became funny to us. So we just leaned into it. And that was a lot of the show. We hadn't planned at the beginning, oh, she's going to be into bananas. Like it just is what kind of and ginger ale has always been soothing to me, like as a kid. Like, so I guess I go to that as like the healthy pop.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me about your relationship with the skaters? Do you still keep in touch with them?
I sure do. Yeah, I do. I mean, Kurt Browning, yeah, he just gave me his jersey from Lillehammer 1994. I know, at the launch of the show. It's so soft and beautiful. Like,
Nice.
I love it. And yeah, sometimes Katya Gordieva, like, well, the odd text, or, a happy birthday, that kind of thing. So like, no, they're not my day-to-day friends, but for sure, yeah, you know, and I'm in touch with Sandra, all the time.
I hear a second. I hear like another season coming on. What do you think?
Well, I do have an idea. I can't share
Oh,
it right now. I do. My only that when producers were asking, is there a second season? Is there something? The only thing I promise I made to myself is it has to come from a true place, or there's no point for this particular series. Like, it really has to come from something real and true. And so there is something, and it is rooted back in '88, and um, there are clues, actually. If you were to watch the series, you could go, "Oh, I see what it could be," and that's all I can say.
that's great. See, so now you gave us these little nuggets that we can look for when anyone who hasn't watched it now will tune in, and maybe we can have a little contest and see if anybody
Sure,
gets
see if
it.
you can figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can figure
the
it out.
clues are there. The clues are there.
And they can have like a guest little cameo on your next
Hey,
season. Hey, you never know. Look at me planning ahead. But we were talking about staying true to your authentic self, and I'm wondering if you can kind of take us back to when you were pursuing this as a career, and
yes.
when you really had to remind yourself to stay true to your authentic self. Because I'm sure the hustle isn't always easy. There's a lot of highs and lows, and auditioning and getting refused, and pitching your ideas, and then having been said no to, I'm sure, a couple
Oh,
of times, right?
tons of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I'm in a slightly different position, because as a writer creator, that there is that's I mean, listen, I don't know if everyone's interested in that, but if you do have an interest in that, I'd say that's a great way to get yourself out there, because if I hadn't sort of created my own work, I don't know how much I'd be working. I don't know. I mean, I would, but I wouldn't have the two most sort of successful acting experiences anyway, show experiences. I wouldn't have those if um, if I hadn't been able to, if I didn't have those skills, or didn't have an interest in that area. So I'd say, if you are an actor and you have an interest in creating and writing and teaming up with other people and collaborating, that's really a great way to make your own work, right? Or
Yeah.
mount your own play or your own show. Um, and then the rest, staying true to yourself. Yeah, like, what are your strengths? What are you good at? And and leaning into your own sense of timing and the way that you are. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but like, no one else is going to be as good at being you as you are. And
Yeah.
as an actor, we have to be different people, but we're always bringing, ourselves to the parts too. Or I am anyway. I guess
Yeah.
most people are. Yeah.
How would you say? I'm assuming, like, because comedy used to be very male dominated. It used to be a very male dominated industry, and then it started opening up to women, and we saw more female comedians in the industry. So how has it changed for you as a woman to be in a comedy environment when you first in as opposed to when you first started?
Yeah, well, when I first started, I mean, at Second City, the casts were always, if at best they were three and three, men and women. At often it was four men, two women, and there was, it was hard. It was, I don't know. It's come a long way, but it was the climate was different when I first started there. And then even when I was in writing rooms early on, I often was the only woman. There might have been one other woman, and then being queer, add that in, like, who was gay in the room, like,
Yeah.
it really, there wasn't that representation. I remember writing for Just for Laughs. It was, I don't know when, 15 years ago. I don't even know, a long time ago. And I was the only woman. There was a massive table in Montreal, and we were writing for the big comics. And I think I was the only woman there. And it was like, wow. And a lot of energy goes into just fitting in and trying to have your voice heard. And so it's just so different now when you can collaborate and be in rooms with other queers, other women, non-binary folks, like, who just, uh, all your energy doesn't have to go into fitting in. Like
Right.
you actually get to focus on the work instead of, you know, um, the culture of the space.
I love the way you had mentioned about creating your own things because I feel, also like, for anybody who wants to create their own content or their own projects, they really have to believe in it because there are so many people that can say, no, it's not going to work. No, we're not looking for this right now. Or,
Yeah.
um, for example, like I would love to be in a cooking show, but sometimes they're like, oh, we're not looking for those stand and stir cooking shows anymore. You got to come up with something different. So, what would you say to the people who are pursuing their
Mm,
their dreams like you are,
yeah.
to constantly remind themselves of?
Okay, a few things. One, I would say, um, like when I auditioned for Second City, the touring company, I'd been taking classes and stuff, and someone who was in the know at the box office or whatever said they're not hiring women. This like they're firing or all the men, and like they're not looking for women. So there's really almost no point in auditioning. And I was like, well, I'm gonna try anyway. And it turned out they hired three new women, and I was one of them, right?
Right.
So one, don't listen. Even if someone, I don't think that person was trying to be malicious or anything. That's just what they'd heard. Things change. They can say they're not looking for women, and next thing you know, they are. They're not looking for an actor, and then they are. So don't give too much uh, credo to those voices. When you might be faced with a decision, like when I got into the touring company, it was the same day that I had gotten a promotion at my day job, and a chance to get an office and an expense account and all this stuff. And then I had to choose between the two. And I chose the $85 a week touring company. And that was, again, not brave. That was true. Like, so then you check in with yourself. So voices can say, well, that's not smart. Make your money first and then follow your dream. It's like, well, if
Mm.
not now, then when? Like, and it's not that it's going to be easy. Like I was temping, and I remember temping and filling out envelopes, address stickers to the very people who were my contemporaries at my day job, like who had the other offices and stuff. And I was in the mailroom now as a temp because I'm doing Second City. I'm trying to pay the bills, and I was sending them letters or whatever. And I'd never been happier. I was like, I don't care. At least I'm at the bottom of a ladder I want to climb rather than like midway up something, I didn't want to be in. Having said that, I love all the people I worked with actually a lot, and I'm still friends with the women I worked with back in those day jobs back in
Can you
back.
tell us a little bit about your experience at Second City? What were those years like?
They were, well, at first it was touring company, which is a lot of like you're understudying, you're performing Sunday nights, you're in a van that is likely falling apart, and traveling with people you don't know who you're getting to know. It's exciting, the working there, and then main stage. It's an amazing opportunity if you're so called to that, and and love improv and love writing through improv. The chance to perform every night in front of an audience is pretty extraordinary. We did 8 shows a week, and you get immediate feedback of what's working. So it really helped with timing. It helped with clarity of premise, listening skills. As we know as actors, like if you're not listening to your scene partner, you're kind of not doing it, or you're not in the scene. And in improv, you really have to listen. And I was a horrible improviser at first. I remember at Second City, I hated the improv set. I'm like, oh, I am so bad at this. It took work, like just constantly, night after night. It's a humbling experience. You can tank up there.
Yeah. I love this advice. We're going to open up our Q&A right now because there are some
Okay.
actors that want to ask you a couple of questions. Who are we going to start with? Hold on, there's a couple. Nicole Adams, were there any characters that you created for Baroness von Sketch that didn't make it to the screen and you wish they had?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, yes. I had one sue the realtor, uh, which is kind of funny. Um, yeah, I think we all did. We had lots of characters. So many scenes didn't make it, but we also had a vault, and some of them we just put away because the scene wasn't good enough and wasn't right. So no, I don't. Maybe some premises I wish I'd pursued, but I feel I got lots of characters out there, so not really that anyone I can think of.
We're going to talk about getting into comedy because there are some actors here who are interested in getting into comedy.
Okay.
What would you say is easier to get into comedy in Toronto, Montreal, or BC? This is from Lazelle Gelias.
Great question. I mean, I've only lived in Montreal and Toronto. I chose to come to Toronto because Second City was there. You know, I'd seen that show, like I was telling you, Natasha, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go and take classes at Second City. So, to my knowledge, there wasn't that in Montreal. I think there's like an improv Olympic or some kind of improv games there. But as an Anglophone, I just didn't feel I had them. There weren't the opportunities. And while I could speak French, it wasn't as well as, people who are French. So I just felt strategically it was a smarter move to move to Toronto. And BC, I've never lived there, but I know there's a great scene out there. There's tons of great improvisers out in BC and in Alberta and Calgary. Tons of people came out of the Loose Moose. So I'd say, you know, Toronto or yeah, out west, but maybe Montreal. And I think it's changed from the time I was there. Like there's so many great artists doing work out there, like Dana McLeod. Like there's tons.
I have this really great question from Sierra. She's saying, what is your favorite way to punch up a comedy script with more funny moments? And do you recommend improvising jokes on set?
100%. Well, listen, there's some directors and some shows that probably don't want that at all. So don't listen to me. But my funniest stuff comes from improv. So if I'm reading a script, I'm not a natural stand-up really. So I'm not going to, the jokes are going to come through me improvising the truth of that moment. So that's how I punch up a script, by reading it and feeling the characters, and then what might they say, like what comes out of me when I'm when I'm assessing a script. And then on set, I almost always improvise. And we all did on Baroness. And I Have Nothing is all improv. So to me, it's super important, because then you're really inhabiting the character, right? And then a little moment comes out, and that you couldn't have planned if you'd scripted it.
So I Have Nothing is all improv?
Yeah, I don't have anything scripted. I mean, I knew, let's say I said, okay, I know I'm going to see a psychic. So it's not like I just woke up one day and said, I'm going to go to the psychic. You know, Zach and I had talked, and I was like, okay, well, that's something I would do. It fits my character, who I am. But did I know what was going to happen there? No. But as an actor, from that training, I went in with an intention, which was to just keep my heart open, to really hear what she has to say. And I'm not going there to make fun of her or to make fun of that experience. I'm here to listen to what she says. So I had that intention. And then let's say when I met Michael Perlmutter, the music supervisor, I went in more comedically thinking, okay, I'm just going to lean into the part of me that thinks this is easy and I should just get the rights. And I'm just going to lean into that. So, you lean into different parts of yourself in improv.
How important do you think it is for an actor to be good at improv? Do you think it sharpens their skills as an actor?
It's all I know. So I really do. I have so much respect for actors who are like trained and really well. I'm not that really. So I think it's important, because the fundamental of improv is listening. And so I think that's where acting and improvisation, like you really have to listen. And the more you listen, the more you're able to respond, authentically. So I do think it's certainly worth, if you're an actor who's never taken an improv class or improvised, it's certainly worth it. You're going to add to your skill set for sure.
All right, a question coming in from Antonio. What's the most important thing to know when pitching a show or web series to a network?
Mm. Really understand the show. Like, really understand it. Do that work. Like, have the conversations with your collaborators or with yourself about what it is, what you want to get across. Have a point of view. Does your show have a point of view? Why do you want to do it? Do you feel emotionally, like, do you feel connected to this work and you need to make it and you want to make it? That's important. If you're just putting together something that you think will sell, meaning like, oh, this is a format that works and I'm going to create a format that works. I mean, there's a lot of people doing that. But if you're really in touch with what you want to say and how you want to say it, and you've done that research and you can answer the questions, that's what's going to help you in a pitch. When they ask you a question, you're like, absolutely, I know how to answer that, because you've thought it through. So really thinking it through. And yeah.
All right, we've got a lot of people tuning in, and I love it because they all wear different hats. Some are actors, some are writers, some are
Right.
creatives, some want to pitch their show ideas. Smita says, "Could you tell us how you got your first job in a writer's room and what that experience was like?"
Yeah, my first job in a writer's room was This Hour Has 22 Minutes. I had
Mm.
been at Second City performing. I'd done my main stage shows. Then I think that's when the first SARS hit. So like the industry in Toronto at that time, 2000, whatever it was, five, six, something like that, it started to tank. Like we weren't getting the shows here. We were the epicenter of whatever that breakout was. Anyway, it was a hard time. In the city then, and Jen Whalen was writing on 22 Minutes, and she said, write a package, like put a package together. So she told me what was needed, which was like 10 copy jokes and 3 sketches or something. And I submitted them to Mark Farrell, and he read them and he liked them. And then they bring you out for like a trial, 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, I got a sketch on the show and I think a copy joke. And that generally was the way it worked. If you could get a sketch on in those 2 weeks or a copy joke, that was a good sign and not annoy everybody in the room.
So, what's the feeling like when you see your what you wrote being performed or being done on air?
It's exciting. I remember, like, because they're all such great performers. Um, Getting to see your work up there is an amazing feeling. I remember because all the writers, we'd stand at the back. It's nerve wracking,
Yeah.
and the copy jokes too, they're nerve wracking. But when you hit it and everyone laughs, it feels amazing. And it also, from having been on stage at Second City to suddenly now being behind the scenes, it is humbling too, because you're like, oh, I'm used to being, when you're on stage or on camera, you're the one getting the response from the audience. And so it's a good experience to step back and say, hey, does my work without me, like being there and just being once removed? It's interesting experience for sure.
I always find that interesting when a creative like yourself is so good at everything, like from writing to directing um, to pitching and to acting, where you know where your strengths are and you can sit back and say, well, no, I'm going to direct this and I'm going to write this and someone else is going to act in it. So,
Mhm.
how do you know what you're better at whenever you come up with something?
Mm, that's a good question. Now, I don't have a ton of experience directing, so I wouldn't sit back and be like, hey, I can direct anything. But the times I have, I really liked it. But I'd say hmm, it's knowing what your strengths are and knowing the strengths of your team. So, like, if you're not the one to play the part, don't put yourself in the part. Like, if casting is half the battle, right? So, like, if it's going to be better with someone else doing it, I think you write it and let them do it. Like a sketch, for example, be like, this is Aurora's going to do a great job. She's amazing at crying and being, I'm not. So
Right.
like she can cry like that. So it's like, oh, of course she's going to bring this wonderful quality to the role. And so of course I would write it for her, not for myself. So I guess it's knowing, can you pull it off? And then if you can pull it off, this right here. Also you want to temper that with challenging yourself and saying, okay, no, but what if I did do it? Like, what if and then you do it and you have to live by, did it go well or not? And you're going to be embarrassed a lot of the time. And then other times you're gonna be like, hey, good for me. And you learn a skill. So just as long as you're ready to kind of fail a few times, you figure out your lane maybe. And also, yeah, your lanes can change. I don't believe you have to stay in one lane. You can,
Yeah.
you can change lanes like on the highway.
Just use your blinker, please.
Yeah, use your blinker, who gets around you? For sure, you are allowed. You are allowed.
Um, okay, Antonio wants to know, how do you navigate creating projects when it's tough getting people together and on board with your idea?
Well, you only get the people who get you. And like leave if someone's like, I don't know what you're talking about, or I'm busy, or I've got other bye, like no problem. Just see you later. Like, but the people who vibe with you creatively, like that's exciting. So find them and they are gonna want to find you. And you don't always have to look to the person who's already quote successful and doing, you who gets you, and then together you can work to realize something. You want the person who's willing to put in the time, or the people who are willing to put in the time, who see the vision, who will collaborate and who have different skill sets from you. Like you don't want a bunch of views, you want people who have other strengths and who really get the vibe. So someone I'd collaborate on one thing with is not necessarily someone I would collaborate on something else with. So choose the people who are interested in the same stuff as you.
I'm inspired by Jill Riley's question because I've often thought this is, when you're in the presence of someone like you who gets comedy so well and creates these funny scenarios. Um, I always like to say, well, what makes them laugh, or what are they watching right now, or what are they into right now that they think is really funny? And Jill wants to know what or who makes you laugh right now, or what shows and comedies do you love?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it's evolved over time. But some, I mean, obviously, like early on, stuff like The Office, the British Office, the American Office, like that was really making me laugh. Um, I often am laughing even at serious shows, like watching Succession or something, like the comedic timing of
Yeah.
those actors. So that's when I get also really excited. And then when I'm watching live shows, someone I've seen perform quite a bit, often we're on a double bill, is Elvira Kurt, and watching a stand up, like just own that stage and reach an audience is just really, really exciting. So I kind of like watching all of it, the dramas, the comedies, and I mean, I love Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal. I thought that was just wild. And I just started watching Jury Duty, and that's pretty cool. That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm not laughing a ton, but I find it fascinating.
Right. Obviously, actors are going through a tough time right now because there's no work. They're not getting any work. So, what advice would you give to them to kind of keep going and motivate them to
Yeah.
uh, to stay positive?
Well, I mean, all the things like watch those movies and shows you haven't had a chance to when you were busy working. Um, reading the books and that you haven't had a chance to read, doing the character work. What's that idea that you wanted to do? Like, what is something, and you can not, yeah, I mean, obviously when the writer's strike was on, you can have like a writing room, but I mean, what are you thinking about and how would you want to do it? And really just remember you're an artist and that is yours. And so how do you see the world? Keep doing it. I mean, I like to paint too. I'm never going to make any money from my paintings, but it keeps me remembering that you can still create. You don't need someone else's permission to create. And then, I mean, the hard part is the material conditions, having to pay your bills, etc. But whatever you have to do that. But in the meantime, keep your artist self protected and don't worry, like just focus on it and keep honing the craft.
And I guess this is the question that a lot of people have when they have an idea, they're working on a show, they want to pitch it. When it comes to financing or finding developmental, money to help you with the project, what are some tips that you can give to those people who are looking for that?
Well, I mean, one is, you approach a producer, they're interested, and they, they get some money together to make a sizzle reel, or a mini writing room or whatever it is you want to do. So you can do that. The other is, what can you fund yourself? Like, do you have that editor friend? And you've got another friend who's trying to get experience as a videographer, a camera person, a sound person. Can you barter some favors? Like, the more you can do yourself, it's so empowering. And now so many people have those tools. So if you can collaborate and trade skills or defer payments, whatever that is, see if you can make the work. And then if you've got something to show, it's so much easier to sell something, even if it's just like a DIY sizzle or trailer you're able to do. That's going to help them then get more money so that you can make something a little bigger. So I'd say use your contacts and your skills. Like, what can you pull off yourself? And also, if a producer wants to give you some money to do that, it's great. But
Right.
sometimes you have to do it yourself.
It's not always the case. Not a lot of people are free or willing to give money. Like you said, they want to see a little pilot or a little sizzle reel or something.
Be prepared to work for no money before you work for money. And it's not that you're working for other people for no money, you're working for yourself for no money. Like, careful who you work for. Other, like, don't always do that. But when you're working for yourself, it's hours and hours of work that you're not being paid for, but you say it's going to come. And when it does, it will be worth it. So
So how do you approach potential collaborators? Do you often work with people you know all the time?
Not always, no. I often do, but no, actually, it's a vibe, and it's like Zach Russell and I had met, and I'd done something for him at Crow's Theater. He was directing a show there, and I thought it was an amazing show. And then he'd said, "Oh, we should work together," and we wanted to. And then I had a few ideas of things I wanted to do, and so I was like, "Hey, do any of these interest you?" And we just had a fun Zoom call, and he's like, "Oh, this sounds cool." So I brought him on board. So it's sort of, whose work do you like? Is there a director or writer or performer who you just, how people who you want to be friends with? You're like, oh, we have a similar something. But artistically, is there someone whose voice resonates with yours, or has a work ethic like yours? Yeah, so you don't have to know them well. You just have to trust that you're on the same page.
All right, so there are so many questions coming in. I'm going to end off this Q&A with Susan, who says she considers you an innovator now. Do you consider yourself an innovator now because of this amazing docu comedy series? I have nothing. And also, she's saying thank you for opening new roads for people who might otherwise be too afraid to try.
Ah, thank you, Susan. Yeah, try, try, create. You can. You give yourself the permission, and yes, try and innovate. Yeah, and come and check in with yourself, because it sounds so cliche or so like woo, but it's like the answers are in you. What are you drawn to? What do you love? Like even my day jobs, I I think about the characters I met and the things I learned, and they informed my office scenes at Second City. Like take whatever you're doing, it's not a waste of your time. Jot down the notes, practice those those characters, and you can innovate from a true place. You really can.
Carolyn Taylor, it has been such an honor to have you here on The Working Actor on Casting Workbook. You've inspired a lot of people to make their dreams come true. You are a super manifester. That I'm going to call you that as well. I cannot wait to see what the second season is going to be of I Have Nothing.
Oh,
Or
we'll see if we get a second season, but yes, that would be great.
but thanks so much for being here. And if you have not checked it out yet, it is streaming on Crave. It's I Have Nothing by Carolyn Taylor, comedian, actor, award-winning comedian, actor, and now choreographer is added to her bio.
Thanks so much, Natasha. Really, sorry I didn't get to see everyone's faces, but it was really nice knowing you're here, and I hope that helped a little.
Thank you so much. And next time you're in Montreal, we will catch up or have a coffee. All right.
Okay, sounds
Thank you
good.
so much. Thanks for
Okay,
joining us on The Working Actor. And thanks to Emily Buchanan, our producer, who's always behind the scenes, but always is amazing in putting this show together. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.